That seat's not for you. Move to the back where you belong. A black woman in business casual freezes mid-sit as the white bus driver's voice booms through the nearly empty bus. Every head turns. She straightens, composure barely intact, as 20 pairs of eyes lock onto her face, burning with humiliation. "Excuse me?" she asks quietly. "Priority seating. Can't you read the sign?" The driver smirks. "Unless you've got some disability I can't see. Do you?" When she doesn't immediately move, his hand hovers over the radio. "Don't make me call security." She silently gathers her bag and retreats to the back, shoulders rigid. Once seated, she pulls out her phone, typing a single note. "Driver number 8294, Route 17, 8:15 a.m. Have you ever been judged before someone knew who you really were? Share your story in the comments. What the bus driver doesn't realize is that he just made the biggest mistake of his career. Vanessa Taylor adjusts her simple blazer as she waits at the Trans-City bus stop. At 42, she carries herself with the quiet confidence of someone who's fought for every inch of her success. Today, she's deliberately dressed down. Standard black slacks, sensible shoes, and minimal jewelry. The perfect disguise for her unannounced inspection. 3 months ago, Vanessa acquired the struggling Trans-City Transit Company. This morning, she reviewed the final acquisition paperwork in her home office, studying route performances and customer complaint trends. Management reports only tell half the story. She needs to experience the service firsthand, anonymously. "Time to see what my money bought," she murmurs, watching bus number 17 approach. Frank Simmons starts his shift in a foul mood. 22 years behind the wheel, and now some corporate outsider has bought the company. In the driver's break room, he vents to another veteran driver. "Heard it's some woman from the city," Frank scoffs, adjusting his uniform cap. "Probably never driven anything bigger than a Prius. Now she's going to tell us how to run buses." His colleague shrugs. "Long as the paycheck's clear. Mark my words, changes are coming. And not the good kind." Frank checks his watch. "Gotta roll. Route 17 waits for no man." When Vanessa boards, Frank barely glances at her. Just another passenger. But something in his expression shifts. A subtle tightening around the eyes, a slight downturn of his mouth. The bus security camera captures this microaggression perfectly. Vanessa notices everything as she moves through the bus. The smudged windows, the outdated route maps, the way Frank barks, "Move along," to the teenage boy fumbling for his fare. She makes mental notes of it all, her trained eye cataloging each detail. The bus is nearly empty, just a handful of passengers scattered throughout. The priority seating area at the front sits completely vacant. Vanessa slides into one of these seats, setting her modest handbag beside her. It's the perfect vantage point to observe Frank's driving habits and passenger interactions. She doesn't realize she's just stepped onto a battlefield. The seat she chose wasn't just any seat. It was about to become evidence in a case Frank didn't know was being built against him. Frank notices Vanessa in his rearview mirror. His eyes narrow at the sight of her in the priority seating area. He reaches for the microphone, his voice crackling through the bus speakers. "Ma'am, those seats are reserved," he announces, voice dripping with artificial politeness. "There's plenty of room in the back." Vanessa looks around at the empty priority section, then back to Frank. "I don't see anyone who needs these seats right now," she responds calmly. "Is there a specific policy against sitting here when they're not needed?" Frank's jaw tightens. Being questioned, especially by her, triggers something in him. He pulls the bus to the curb with a sharp jerk, unfastens his seatbelt, and stands. "Look," he says, looming over her. "I don't make the rules. Those seats aren't for regular passengers." He emphasizes each word like he's speaking to a child. "Now move to the back or get off my bus." The words, "my bus," hang in the air between them. Vanessa catches them, files them away. A few passengers shift uncomfortably. An elderly white woman nods in agreement with Frank, muttering something about respect for authority. From the corner of her eye, Vanessa notices a young Latino man discreetly holding up his phone, camera lens pointed in their direction. "I understand," Vanessa says, gathering her bag. Her voice remains professional, betraying none of the calculations happening behind her eyes. "Could I have your employee ID number for feedback purposes?" Frank's face flushes. He stands taller, puffing out his chest. "Sure thing," he says with a mocking smile. "It's 8294. Been driving 22 years, nothing's going to happen." He taps his nameplate. "Frank Simmons. Go ahead and complain. I'll be here tomorrow, same as always." Vanessa nods once, committing the information to memory, even though she already knows it. She rises with dignity and moves toward the back of the bus, feeling the stares of other passengers following her. As she passes the young man with the phone, their eyes meet briefly. He gives her an almost imperceptible nod. She returns it, a silent acknowledgement of the alliance forming. As Vanessa moves to the back, the evidence of Frank's behavior is already being recorded, preserved, and time-stamped. From her seat in the back, Vanessa observes everything with laser focus. The bus stops again, and a white couple in their 30s boards, laughing about something on their phones. They slide into the exact priority seats Vanessa was forced to abandon. Frank says nothing, gives them a cursory nod as he pulls back into traffic. Vanessa's eyebrow rises slightly. She takes a mental photograph of this selective enforcement. 10 minutes later, the bus stops for an elderly white woman with a cane. Frank's entire demeanor transforms. "Ma'am, let me help you," he says, voice suddenly dripping with courtesy. He turns to the white couple. "Folks, would you mind making room? Priority seating for our senior passengers." The couple moves without complaint. Frank doesn't even glance toward Vanessa, who had already half risen to offer her seat. She slowly sits back down, invisible to him. Halfway through the route, Frank abruptly pulls over at a convenience store. "Quick break, folks," he announces. 5 minutes. Passengers exchange confused glances as Frank exits, leaving the bus idling. Through the windows, Vanessa watches him light a cigarette and chat with another driver who's pulled up alongside. 5 minutes stretches to 8, then 10. The elderly woman checks her watch anxiously. When Frank finally returns, smelling of smoke, he doesn't acknowledge the delay. Vanessa quietly takes out her phone and begins making detailed notes. Route number, times, behavior patterns. Frank catches the movement in his mirror. The bus jerks to another unscheduled stop. Frank storms down the aisle, stopping beside Vanessa's seat. "What do you think you're doing?" he demands, voice raised. "Making notes for my day," Vanessa replies evenly. "Looks like you're recording or something," Frank says, leaning closer. "That's against company policy without permission." "Actually, there's no such policy at Trans-City Transit," Vanessa begins, her knowledge of her own company's rules slipping out before she can stop herself. Frank's eyes narrow. "Oh, so you know company policy better than me." His voice rises, designed to create a spectacle. "Been driving these routes for over 2 decades. I think I know what's allowed on my bus." Passengers stare openly now. Some look away, uncomfortable with the confrontation. Others watch with the morbid curiosity of bystanders at an accident. "Either put the phone away or get off my bus." Frank's finger jabs toward the door. The humiliation is calculated, public, pointed. Every eye on the bus witnesses it. Vanessa feels their stares like physical touch against her skin. With practiced calm, the same composure that's carried her through countless boardroom battles, she slides her phone into her pocket, but not before sending a quick text message with her free hand, shielded from Frank's view by her body. The message goes to a number saved simply as Executive Office. 3 words. Immediate action required. The text Vanessa just sent wasn't to customer service. It was to the woman who would end Frank's career. Vanessa steps off the bus at the next stop, her exit a strategic retreat rather than surrender. The moment the doors close behind her, she pulls out her phone and dials a number from memory. The screen splits. Vanessa walking purposefully down the sidewalk, her casual attire now contrasting with the steel in her spine. Nicole, her executive assistant, sitting in a sleek office with the Trans-City Transit logo prominently displayed on the wall behind her. "Nicole, I need everything we have on driver 8294, Frank Simmons." Vanessa's voice is controlled fury, the kind that doesn't shout but cuts. "Full employment record, complaint history, performance reviews, and I want the camera footage from bus 17 this morning secured immediately, before anyone can access or alter it." Nicole responds with professional efficiency. "Right away, Ms. Taylor. This sounds serious. Should I alert legal?" "Not yet." Vanessa pauses at a crosswalk, her gaze distant as she calculates her next moves like a chess grandmaster. "This is personal. I want to handle it myself first." The light changes. Vanessa crosses, her pace never faltering. "Also, arrange an emergency meeting with the board and operations manager for tomorrow morning. Don't specify what it's about." As she ends the call, a notification pings. The young man from the bus has sent her the video through the company's customer feedback portal, adding a message. "What happened to you wasn't right. I record all my bus rides after what happened to my mother last year. I'm happy to be a witness if needed." The video is clear, damning. Frank's tone, his body language, his selective enforcement of rules, all captured from an angle the bus cameras wouldn't show. "Thank you," Vanessa whispers to the screen, to this unexpected ally. Meanwhile, Frank continues his route, keying his radio to chat with another driver. "Had to put someone in their place today," he chuckles. "Some people think they can just sit wherever they want." "You showed 'em, Frank," comes the crackling reply. "Always do," Frank says, smugness evident even through the static. Vanessa enters a coffee shop, orders a black coffee, and opens her laptop. With a few keystrokes, she accesses Trans-City's internal systems, permissions only the owner would have. Frank's personnel file appears on her screen. Previous complaints highlighted in yellow. Multiple entries. Selective enforcement of rules. Discourteous to certain passengers. Attitude problem. All dismissed or addressed with verbal warnings. No consequences. No change. Vanessa scrolls through year after year of similar reports, protected by a system that looked the other way. Enabled by management that valued tenure over conduct. She takes a slow sip of her coffee. 22 years of behaving this way, believing there would never be consequences. "That ends today," she says softly, closing the laptop. The system that protected Frank for 22 years was about to meet the woman who had built her career dismantling broken systems. Frank arrives at the depot the next morning, whistling as he collects his route assignment. His supervisor, Thomas, stands by the dispatch desk, shoulders tense. When he spots Frank, he straightens up, forcing a neutral expression. "Frank, got a minute?" Thomas gestures to a private corner. "Sure thing, boss." Frank follows, still whistling. "Something wrong with the route today?" Thomas shifts his weight. "There's been a complaint about your behavior yesterday." Frank laughs, dismissive. "Another one? So what?" He adjusts his uniform cap. "People complain when they don't get their way. What was it this time? The lady who wouldn't move from priority seating?" "Actually, yes." Thomas clears his throat. "And apparently there's video. Management wants to see you before your shift starts." Frank's whistling stops abruptly. "Video? That's against policy. She can't record on my bus without permission." "That's actually not in our policy, Frank," Thomas says carefully, consulting a company handbook. "And the bus cameras also captured the incident." Frank's face reddens. "Look, they can watch whatever they want. I was doing my job." He taps his chest with his thumb. "I've been here longer than most of the management. Nothing's going to happen. I know how to handle difficult passengers." Thomas just nods, clearly uncomfortable with the entire conversation. Report to Bill's office at 8:30. Across the depot, in the management office, middle manager Bill Powell reviews the complaint on his computer. His expression suggests inconvenience rather than concern. Just give him a warning, Bill tells his assistant. We're short on drivers as it is. The assistant, a younger woman who's only been with the company 6 months, frowns. I don't know, Bill. This seems pretty cut and dry discrimination. And have you seen how many previous complaints are in his file? Bill waves his hand dismissively. It's his word against hers. Just another passenger who doesn't understand how things work. The video is pretty clear. Look, Bill cuts her off. Frank's been here forever. He knows the routes better than anyone. Write up the warning, I'll have him sign it, and we can all move on with our day. The assistant reluctantly begins typing the minimal disciplinary form. Bill's phone rings. He glances at the caller ID display. V. Taylor, CEO. As Bill reaches for the phone, he has no idea that the passenger Frank humiliated and the name on his caller ID are one and the same. Vanessa sits in her home office, the wall behind her lined with transportation industry awards and her MBA diploma from Wharton. Spread before her is the evidence against Frank, the passenger video playing silently on one screen, bus camera footage on another, his personnel file open on her tablet. She's methodical, highlighting patterns, connecting dots. This isn't her first time building a case, but it's certainly the most personal. She picks up her phone and dials Bill Powell's direct line. This is Bill, he answers, his tone professionally bland. Mr. Powell, this is Vanessa Taylor. There's a pause. Ms. Taylor, the CEO. We weren't expecting... I've received disturbing evidence of discriminatory conduct by one of your drivers. Vanessa cuts in, her voice cool and measured. Frank Simmons, employee number 8294. Bill's casual dismissiveness evaporates. Yes, I was just reviewing that incident. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Frank's been with us for decades. Longevity doesn't excuse bigotry, Mr. Powell. Each word precise, a surgeon's scalpel. I'll be addressing this personally at tomorrow's emergency board meeting. I expect Frank Simmons and yourself to be present. She pauses deliberately. Don't inform him who I am yet. I want to see his unfiltered behavior. Of course, Ms. Taylor, Bill stammers. I'll make sure he's there. In the driver's break room, Frank holds court, coffee cup in hand. 4 other drivers listen as he recounts his version of yesterday's events. So, this lady thinks she can just sit wherever she wants, Frank says, gesturing expansively. When I tell her to move, she starts taking notes like she's gonna report me or something. He takes a victorious sip of coffee. Management called me in, but these corporate types never follow through. They need us more than we need them. A younger driver, only 3 years on the job, looks concerned. I heard the new owner doesn't mess around, Frank. Maybe you should take this seriously. Frank dismisses this with a laugh. Some rich lady from the city who's never driven a bus in her life? What's she going to do? Fire her most experienced driver over one passenger complaint? The break room falls quiet as drivers exchange glances. Frank doesn't notice, too busy enjoying his perceived immunity. The rich lady from the city was about to show Frank exactly what she could do. And it would start by revealing who that passenger really was. The boardroom on the top floor of Trans-City Transit headquarters gleams with recent renovations. Vanessa's first act as owner was updating the neglected executive level. Modern light fixtures cast a professional glow over the polished conference table where several executives sit in silent anticipation. Frank arrives 15 minutes early, dressed in his regular uniform, no special effort made for the occasion. He tugs at his collar, uncomfortable in this rarefied air, but masking it with bravado. Place looks different, he mutters to Bill Powell, who escorts him in. Lot of money spent on fancy lights while the buses fall apart. Bill attempts to coach him one last time. Just show some remorse, Frank. Say you had a bad day, you'll do better. That's all they want to hear. Frank scoffs. I'll just explain how these priority seats work. Management always backs us up on safety protocols. They take their seats. Frank finally notices the large screen at the front of the room, currently displaying frozen images from 2 videos, the bus security footage and the passenger recording side by side. His smile falters slightly. The company's HR director, a composed woman in her 50s, opens a folder. "Mr. Simmons, we're addressing a serious complaint about discriminatory behavior toward a passenger yesterday morning on Route 17. Frank interrupts, leaning forward. "Look, I was just enforcing the priority seating policy. If people would just follow the rules—" "The bus was nearly empty, Mr. Simmons," the HR director cuts him off, her tone professional but firm. "And our policy explicitly states priority seating is only restricted when needed by elderly or disabled passengers." Frank's posture stiffens. "Listen, I've been driving longer than most of you have been working here. I know how to handle my bus." "Your bus?" The HR director raises an eyebrow. "The company's bus," Frank corrects himself, but his tone remains defiant. "Point is, you weren't there. You're watching a few minutes of video and making judgments about a situation you don't understand." The tension in the room thickens. Frank continues digging himself deeper, unaware of who's about to enter. "I've got a perfect driving record. Ask anyone. 22 years, not a single accident. How many drivers can say that? You want to come after me for telling some passenger to follow the rules? Good luck with that." The boardroom door opens. Frank's words die in his throat as he comes face to face with the difficult passenger he humiliated, now wearing a tailored executive suit and carrying the CEO's portfolio. A hush falls over the boardroom as Vanessa enters. Gone is the casual business attire from yesterday, replaced by a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, understated gold jewelry, and an air of absolute authority. Every eye follows her as she walks to the head of the table, her heels clicking purposefully against the hardwood floor. Frank's expression transforms in slow motion. Confusion, then recognition, then dawning horror as the pieces click into place. His mouth opens slightly, but no words emerge. "Good morning, everyone," Vanessa begins, her voice calm and measured. "For those who haven't met me in person yet, I'm Vanessa Taylor, CEO and owner of Trans-City Transit." She places her executive portfolio, embossed with the company logo and her title, on the table, and turns her gaze directly to Frank. "And yesterday, Mr. Simmons, I was the passenger you ordered to the back of the bus." Frank's face drains of color. You didn't identify yourself." "Should I have needed to?" Vanessa asks, raising one eyebrow. The question hangs in the air, heavy with implication. Does Trans-City Transit have different standards of treatment for passengers based on who they are or how they look? She doesn't wait for his answer. With a small remote, she activates the presentation screen. The videos begin playing side by side, the official bus footage and the passenger recording. Frank's voice fills the room. "That seat's not for you. Move to the back where you belong." "This incident occurred at 8:17 yesterday morning," Vanessa narrates as the videos play. Approximately 12 minutes later, a white couple boarded and sat in those exact seats. They weren't asked to move. The footage confirms her words. At 8:36, when an elderly passenger boarded, Mr. Simmons instructed the white couple to make room, but ignored my offer to give up my seat. She moves through the evidence methodically. Frank's unscheduled break that delayed passengers, his confrontation when he noticed Vanessa taking notes, his blatant lie about company recording policies. "This isn't about who I am, Mr. Simmons," Vanessa continues, her voice level but resolute. "It's about how you treat people you perceive as having no power." She meets his eyes across the table. "The fact that I happen to be the owner of this company doesn't make your behavior more or less acceptable. It just means I'm in a position to ensure there are consequences." Frank finds his voice, desperation edging in. "Ms. Taylor, with all due respect, I was just trying to enforce the priority seating policy." "Were you?" Vanessa interrupts, tapping her tablet. "Because our policy states, and I quote, priority seating is reserved for elderly and disabled passengers when such passengers are present. It doesn't authorize drivers to prevent other passengers from using those seats when they're empty." She swipes to a new document on the screen. Your personnel file shows 7 previous complaints about selectively enforcing rules based on passengers' appearance, all dismissed or addressed with verbal warnings. Frank attempts another defense. Different situations, different contexts, different passengers, Vanessa finishes for him. Different treatment. Bill Powell, sensing which way the wind is blowing, attempts to distance himself from the situation. Ms. Taylor, I assure you if I'd known the severity— Vanessa cuts him off with a raised hand. That's precisely the problem, Mr. Powell. This behavior should be addressed with the same seriousness regardless of who the passenger is or whether the CEO is watching. The fact that Mr. Simmons has multiple similar complaints in his file that were never properly addressed points to a systemic failure of management. The board members shift uncomfortably as Vanessa makes it clear this isn't just about Frank. It's about a culture that permitted his behavior. She outlines immediate steps. Frank's suspension pending formal review, an independent audit of complaint procedures, and mandatory anti-bias training for all staff, starting with management. Frank, now desperate, tries one last angle. You can't just come in here and change everything overnight. You don't know the first thing about running buses. Vanessa raises an eyebrow. Actually, Mr. Simmons, before I acquired this company, I spent 15 years in public transportation management, including 5 years driving buses to put myself through business school. She lets that sink in. Any other assumptions you'd like to make about me? Frank finally falls silent, the ground crumbling beneath his feet. Vanessa turns to address the entire room, her gaze sweeping over every face. This ends today, not just for Mr. Simmons, but for the entire culture that made him think his behavior was acceptable. As the weight of consequence settles over the room, no one notices the silent message appearing on Vanessa's phone. Phase 2, ready when you are. Within 48 hours of the boardroom confrontation, Trans-City Transit undergoes a seismic shift. Vanessa doesn't waste time on half measures. She works late into the night with the legal team, dissecting and rebuilding the company's complaint system from the ground up. These policies have no teeth, she tells the head of legal, sliding aside a folder of previous harassment guidelines. They create the illusion of accountability without actually requiring it. The new system they design eliminates loopholes and removes subjective judgment from the equation. Clear violations receive clear consequences. Every complaint now goes through an independent review committee that includes representatives from management, union, and, most radically, the passenger community. Frank's formal disciplinary hearing is scheduled for the following week. In the meantime, he finds himself suspended without pay, his company ID deactivated. The news spreads quickly through driver circles. Some express sympathy, but most keep their distance, sensing the changing winds. They can't do this to me, Frank insists to a longtime colleague over beers at a bar far from the depot. 22 years of service, and they're treating me like some rookie who crashed a bus. Times are changing, Frank, his friend responds, uncomfortable. Maybe you should just apologize, take the sensitivity training. Apologize for what? Doing my job? Frank slams down his beer. I'm going to fight this. The union will back me up. But when Frank approaches his union representative, he finds no champion there. I've reviewed the videos, Frank, the rep says gravely. This isn't a gray area. The union's job is to ensure fair treatment and due process, not to defend clear violations of both company policy and basic human decency. So you're abandoning me too? Frank's voice rises. After all the dues I've paid? You'll get a fair hearing, the rep assures him. That's what we can guarantee. But I strongly advise you to show remorse and a willingness to change. That's your best path forward. Frank leaves the union office feeling betrayed. He doesn't recognize the company anymore. The rules that once seemed bendable to his will now stand rigid against him. Meanwhile, Bill Powell and several middle managers face their own reckonings. During a tense meeting with Vanessa, Bill attempts to defend his years of minimal action on complaints. We have to balance driver retention with passenger concerns, he argues. In this industry, you can't just replace experienced drivers over every little complaint. Discrimination isn't a little complaint, Mr. Powell, Vanessa replies. And characterizing it as such is exactly why we're here. She slides a folder across the desk to him. You have two options: accept reassignment to route planning with a 6-month probationary period, or tender your resignation. Similar conversations play out across middle management. Some accept reassignment, others choose to leave. The message becomes clear throughout the organization. Enabling discrimination through inaction carries consequences just as tangible as the discrimination itself. The Transit Workers Union initially approaches these changes with caution. Union President Darrell Washington requests an emergency meeting with Vanessa, concerned about a potential purge of longtime employees. "My members are worried," he explains in Vanessa's office. "They need to know their rights will be protected." "I respect workers' rights, Mr. Washington," Vanessa responds. "What I don't respect is using those rights as a shield for bigotry. There's nothing in your contract that protects discriminatory behavior, is there?" Washington concedes the point. "No, but there are concerns about subjective interpretations. Which is why we're installing cameras in every bus and implementing clear, objective standards," Vanessa counters. "Drivers who treat all passengers with respect have nothing to worry about." By the meeting's end, they reach an understanding. The union will work with management to revise contracts, explicitly addressing discriminatory behavior while strengthening protections for due process. This balance, accountability with fairness, becomes the foundation for the company's transformation. Vanessa personally meets with the young passenger who recorded the original video. His name is Antonio Velez, a law student who started recording his transit experiences after his mother faced similar discrimination. "Your video was crucial evidence, Mr. Velez," Vanessa tells him. "I'd like to offer you a position on our newly formed Passenger Advisory Board. We need perspectives like yours to truly understand how our service impacts the community." Antonio accepts, becoming one of 12 diverse community members chosen to provide direct feedback on service quality and treatment. The board meets monthly, with executives required to attend and address concerns directly. News of Trans-City's transformation spreads beyond the company's boundaries. Transportation industry publications pick up the story. Some companies dismiss it as excessive corporate interference. Others, sensing the changing social landscape, begin quietly reviewing their own policies. 3 weeks into the changes, Vanessa addresses all employees in a company-wide meeting held in the depot's largest maintenance bay. Buses are moved aside to make room for chairs. Drivers, mechanics, office staff, and management all gather together. A first in the company's history. "This isn't about punishment," Vanessa states clearly, her voice carrying through the cavernous space without a microphone. "It's about building a company where everyone, employees and passengers alike, is treated with dignity." She paces slowly across the makeshift stage. "The standards we're implementing aren't extraordinary. They're the bare minimum of human decency." She outlines new initiatives: anonymous reporting systems for employees who witness misconduct, regular culture audits to identify problem areas before they escalate, recognition programs for employees who exemplify inclusive service, and career advancement opportunities specifically designed to diversify management. "Some of you may be thinking this will all blow over," she acknowledges, meeting eyes across the room, "that if you wait long enough, things will go back to normal. Let me be clear. This is the new normal. You can embrace it and grow with this company, or you can find employment elsewhere. The choice is yours, but the direction of Trans-City Transit is not changing." After the meeting, applications for the new Diversity Advancement Program exceed available spots 3-1. Employees who initially resisted the changes begin to see opportunities rather than threats. The depot atmosphere gradually shifts from tension to cautious optimism. Through it all, Frank remains suspended, awaiting his hearing. He watches from the outside as the company he thought he knew transforms into something unrecognizable to him. His attempts to rally support among longtime colleagues yield diminishing returns as they adapt to the new reality. On the morning of his hearing, Frank receives the official notice of termination. The hearing will proceed as scheduled, but its purpose has changed. Not to determine if he will be terminated, but to document the reasons for the record and to give him an opportunity to respond. As Vanessa reviews the final termination paperwork in her office, her assistant brings in an unexpected update. 3 other local transit companies have contacted Trans City requesting information about their new policies. The ripple effect has begun. "Should I send them the guidelines?" the assistant asks. Vanessa considers this, then nods. "Send everything. The policies, the training materials, the community board structure. This shouldn't be proprietary. It should be standard." She turns to look out her office window at the fleet of buses below, each one carrying people whose daily experiences matter. The company she purchased as a business investment has become something more, a vehicle for necessary change. As Frank holds his termination notice with trembling hands, he still doesn't understand that he isn't just losing a job. He's witnessing the end of an era that should have ended long ago. Frank arrives at his hearing with the desperate confidence of a drowning man grasping at straws. He's traded his uniform for an ill-fitting suit, the same one he wore to his sister's wedding 3 years ago. Beside him sits Alvin Bennett, an attorney he could barely afford, specializing in employment disputes. The hearing committee waits in the renovated conference room. A diverse panel including HR, a union representative, operations, and, most unsettling to Frank, Antonio Velez from the new Passenger Advisory Board. No friendly faces, no old guard allies. "This is just a formality," Bennett whispers to Frank. "But we'll present your case as a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. 22 years of service has to count for something." Frank nods, clinging to this thread of hope. The hearing proceeds with clinical efficiency. The evidence against Frank plays again on the screen. The confrontation, his selective enforcement, his unprofessional conduct, all captured from multiple angles. His personnel file appears next, 27 similar complaints over his career, all either dismissed or addressed with minimal consequences. Bennett attempts to frame the incident as isolated, an anomaly in an otherwise stellar career. "Mr. Simmons has transported thousands of passengers safely over 2 decades, he argues. One heated interaction shouldn't erase that record." The committee listens politely but remains unmoved. Their questions probe not just the incident with Vanessa, but the pattern it represents. Vanessa herself enters midway through, taking a seat at the side of the room rather than at the committee table, present as a witness, not a decision-maker. When called to testify, she recounts her experience factually, without embellishment. "This isn't about one incident," she concludes. "Mr. Simmons's personnel file shows 27 complaints of similar behavior over his career, all either dismissed or addressed with minimal consequences. That pattern indicates this wasn't an anomaly. It was standard practice." Frank listens, his face reddening with each word. Something inside him finally snaps. "Everyone does it!" he bursts out, his lawyer's restraining hand ignored. "You're singling me out because now suddenly it's all about being woke." The room falls silent. His outburst hangs in the air, damning in its implications. Bennett winces. "My client is understandably emotional." "Your client just confirmed the problem," the HR director observes quietly. "The decision is unanimous. Termination for cause, with the incident fully documented. Frank's transportation license won't be revoked. That's not within the company's power. But the detailed record will follow him to any future employer in the industry." The aftermath hits Frank like a slow-motion collision. His first job application is rejected within hours. Then the second. And the third. His phone calls go unreturned. Former colleagues stop answering his texts. The industry that once seemed to have an unshakable place for him now treats him like a contagion. 6 months later, Frank stands in the parking lot of the Metropolitan Transportation Conference, now working as an attendant, the only job he could find even tangentially related to his former career. He wears a different uniform now, polyester pants and a neon vest, directing cars for minimum wage plus tips. Through the convention center's glass doors, he spots a familiar figure. Vanessa Taylor, surrounded by transportation executives, heading toward the main stage. She's the keynote speaker, her company's transformation the talk of the industry. For a moment, their eyes meet across the distance. No words are exchanged, no acknowledgement given, just the stark reality of their reversed positions, her ascending, him fallen, reflected in that brief, electric contact. Frank returns to directing traffic, the laminated badge on his chest, a far cry from the Trans-City ID he once wore with pride. Each luxury car he waves through contains someone heading to hear Vanessa speak about the future of inclusive transportation services. The irony isn't lost on him, but understanding comes too late. As Frank watches Vanessa take the stage to thunderous applause, he finally begins to understand that the world he took for granted, where people like him could act with impunity, is disappearing, one company at a time. 1 year after the incident that catalyzed Trans-City Transit's transformation, the company bears little resemblance to its former self. Employee satisfaction scores have risen from a dismal 42% to an impressive 87%. Passenger complaints have decreased by 65%, while commendations have tripled. Most tellingly, applications for employment have surged, particularly among women and people of color who previously avoided the industry. Vanessa stands at the podium of the National Transportation Association's annual conference, slides displaying these metrics behind her. The audience, once skeptical of her radical approach, now leans forward, taking notes. The transformation wasn't quick or easy, she acknowledges, her voice carrying through the packed auditorium. We faced resistance, skepticism, and backsliding that required constant vigilance. Change never follows a straight line. She clicks to the next slide, a quote from a driver who initially opposed the reforms but now leads one of the company's mentorship programs. The key was demonstrating that accountability and respect aren't just moral imperatives, they're good business. Our operational efficiency improved 23% once we addressed the cultural issues undermining trust between management, drivers, and passengers. In the front row, executives from competing transit companies exchange glances. 3 have already implemented similar reforms. Others are drafting plans, recognizing the shifting landscape. Industry publications that once relegated diversity issues to special annual editions now feature regular columns analyzing the business impact of inclusive practices. Trans-City's journey from troubled company to industry leader appears in case studies at transportation management programs across the country. Antonio Velez, now in his final year of law school and head of the Passenger Advisory Board, joins Vanessa at community forums throughout the city. Together, they speak about the importance of accountability and the courage to speak up. The video I recorded wasn't about getting someone fired, Antonio tells a community center audience. It was about making visible what many people experience daily but can't prove. Visibility is the first step toward change. The ripple effects spread beyond Trans-City. A montage of progress flashes across television screens and social media. Diverse new hires training as drivers, management teams that finally reflect the communities they serve, passengers of all backgrounds being treated with the same baseline respect, once reserved for those with perceived status or power. At a private ceremony covered by Transportation Industry Press, Vanessa establishes the William Taylor Advancement Scholarship for minorities entering transportation management. She dedicates it to her grandfather, a skilled bus driver who was denied promotion to dispatcher in the 1960s despite his qualifications. My grandfather never saw the changes we're implementing today, she tells the small gathering, her usual professional composure softening slightly. But he taught me that transportation isn't just about moving people physically, it's about moving society forward. Every seat on every bus belongs to everyone. Every career path in this industry should be equally accessible. The scholarship's first recipients, 5 promising students from backgrounds traditionally underrepresented in management, stand nearby, embodying the future Vanessa envisions. As cameras flash, capturing the moment for industry publications, Vanessa's phone buzzes with a notification. Trans-City has just been named Transportation Company of the Year, the first time a mid-sized regional company has received the honor traditionally reserved for national giants. The changes at Trans-City were impressive, but for Vanessa, the most meaningful test was yet to come, a simple bus ride that would bring her journey full circle. 18 months after that fateful morning on bus number 17, Vanessa stands at a Trans-City bus stop in the early morning light. She wears simple slacks and a blouse, not as an undercover boss this time, but simply as herself, a woman with a downtown meeting who prefers public transit to gridlocked traffic. Bus number 42 pulls up precisely on schedule, its electric motor humming quietly. The doors slide open to reveal a young woman of South Asian descent behind the wheel. Her nameplate reads, S. Patel. "Good morning." The driver greets Vanessa with the same warm professionalism she offers every boarding passenger. There's no recognition in her eyes, just the genuine welcome that's now standard across the fleet. Vanessa returns the greeting and moves through the bus. It's clean, well-maintained. The route maps are updated. The information screens display clear multilingual instructions, small details that speak volumes. She slides into an empty seat in the priority section, setting her bag beside her. No one questions her right to sit there. The atmosphere is different now. Passengers of various backgrounds chat casually or focus on their phones, comfortable in the shared space. 3 stops later, an elderly man with a walker boards slowly. Without prompting or fanfare, Vanessa rises and offers her seat. The simple human courtesy passes without drama as it should. No power plays, no performance, just one person being considerate of another's needs. "Thank you," the man says with a nod. "Of course," Vanessa replies. Driver Patel waits patiently until the man is settled before continuing the route. This brief delay triggers no complaints from other passengers. The culture of mutual respect has gradually become the new normal. When Vanessa's stop approaches, she moves toward the exit. As she passes the driver, they exchange a simple smile, a moment between two people with no awareness of their connection in the company hierarchy. It's in this anonymous, ordinary interaction that Vanessa finds the deepest satisfaction, proof that the changes have taken root beyond her personal presence or authority. The bus pulls away as Vanessa stands on the sidewalk watching it merge into traffic. Other Trans-City buses pass in the opposite direction, their diverse drivers focused on their routes, their passengers secure in the expectation of being treated with basic dignity. True change isn't measured by what happens when everyone knows who's watching, Vanessa thinks, resuming her walk toward her meeting. It's measured by what happens when no one thinks anyone is watching at all. That evening, Vanessa returns to her office after a day of meetings. She pauses before a framed photograph on her credenza, her grandfather in his bus driver's uniform, standing proudly beside his vehicle in 1962. His eyes hold dreams deferred but not abandoned. Beside the photo sits a plaque with Trans-City's new motto, "Every seat is for everyone. Every passenger deserves respect." She touches the frame gently, a private moment of connection across generations. On her desk, a report awaits her attention. 3 more transit companies in neighboring states have adopted Trans-City's policies verbatim. The transformation is spreading, depot by depot, route by route. Outside her window, the company's buses return to the yard as the evening shift ends. Drivers chat amicably as they clock out, a diverse group unified by their shared profession rather than divided by old hierarchies. Tomorrow, they'll carry thousands of passengers safely to their destinations, each interaction an opportunity to reinforce the new culture or to slide back into old patterns. But Vanessa isn't worried anymore. The company has reached the tipping point where doing the right thing has become easier than maintaining the old wrongs. The system now sustains itself. Change, once begun, has its own momentum. If this story resonated with you, don't let it end here. Subscribe to Beat Stories for weekly doses of real-world justice that will change how you see the world around you. We share the stories that mainstream media won't. Stories of power revealed, assumptions shattered, and justice served. Hit that subscribe button now and turn on notifications so you never miss a new Beat story. Each like and share helps us reach more people who need to hear these powerful accounts.
What happened today isn't just a story. It's a reminder. Silence protects systems, but courage rewrites them. At Beat Stories, we don't just watch change, we document it. Subscribe for more real stories that challenge power and amplify truth.